Fulcherot. Atlantis. Do you recall memories from the Earth's incarnation or timeline, whichever way you want to look upon it, known as Atlantis? As those of us who are channels, we are aware that there was different incarnations of Gaia, of Earth. We had Lemurian, we had Atlantis, we had all these different timelines that relate to different evolutions of Earth's expression. And the one that I always related to and resonated with the most would be that of Atlantis. So as a child, I had strong, vivid flashes or memories of Atlantis. I didn't know it was Atlantis. I didn't really understand. I couldn't connect it to my current world or the current Earth. I was born in 1981 in Dublin, in Glasnevin. And as lovely as a lot of my childhood was, there wasn't much time for, 80s Dublin, Ireland was economically, environmentally, culturally a heavy time in some ways. Now I didn't notice that too much as a child, but let's just say it wasn't very magical or colourful. When I think back to that time, there was a lot of unemployment, there was a lot of poverty, there was a lot of unrest with Northern Ireland and South of Ireland with all the troubles, as they call it. So I suppose as a child, I probably just would visit these other expressions of life as a way to sprinkle some magic into my everyday life. But what I didn't realize was, or maybe I did, maybe I just forgot. Because I think as you get older, the psychic mind does have a tendency to start to crisp over or close up. Those of us who remain psychic, that's actually what happens there, is that doesn't happen. We keep it wide open. But we also have to discipline it and work with it. And it is a lifelong discipline. And the longer you're tending to your middle eye and the longer you're tending to your spiritual evolution, the better a light worker, healer, teacher you're going to be. So that's why I often prefer to work with people who have experience, wisdom. And that doesn't mean age, by the way. There's some really young light workers who are incredibly gifted and talented, and they're what we'd call the old souls. They have that ancient, inner old person or wisdom within their consciousness. But I digress. I started to have a lot of drowning dreams, and these reached a peak in my late 20s. I think it was around 2007, between 2007 and 2010. I would have a lot of these tsunami dreams where there'd be like this massive wave of water, and even thinking about it gives me chills because it's quite terrifying, as you can imagine, and so crystal clear, so vivid, so real. Definitely reliving some kind of memory. And as a kid, I remember being quite cautious of the water, which was funny because my parents brought me and my brothers every Saturday for swimming. And the whole family packed up the car on Saturday morning and we went and did our swim. And I was just very nervous in the water. It took a long time for me to actually swim. And even when I did swim, unfortunately, I lost that because I was swimming, I was delighted. And for those of you who say you didn't lose it, I know what you're saying. They say once you learn to swim or ride a bike, you never forget. But my point is, I basically, my dad, there was this big slide. We were on holiday in Wales in a place at the time called Pontins. It was kind of like Butlins, or Mosney, as I think they call it now in County Meath here in Ireland. And there was this really big slide that kind of, you slid down it and you went up in the air. And I was this really light, little, thin child. And I wanted to go on it, so I queued and I went down it. But I went straight up because I was just so light. I flew down this thing up in the air and plopped down into the water. And I just remember going all the way down, and all I could see was people's legs, you know, like swimming like frogs, and the panic and swallowing all the water. And it triggered this flashback to drowning. And ever since then, I've been cautious with water. I did do cold dipping. I started that like a year ago. Had another uncomfortable experience with that, so pull back from that. I was doing the cold plunge, which I later found out that if you have like PTSD, if you have functional freeze, if you're somebody who has had some kind of trauma, like physical trauma, like if you've ever been experienced physical abuse or sexual violence, you can have a lot of trauma in your body. And actually, I only found this out in the last few months, doing cold plunges is not recommended because you're already frozen in your trauma, you're already thawing out, and by putting yourself into cold situations, extreme cold situations, you're reactivating that freeze response. It's not good. And I did have another time where I did the cold dip, and it was so cold, I was on Portmarnock Beach and I just completely blacked out, and I was frozen. I was totally paralyzed. I could not move, and there was all these people splashing and having a great time, and all these kids having a ball, and my boyfriend was like, he could see that I was just gone. And he was like, he calls me Belle because he said I ring like a bell, and he was like, Belle, oh my god, Belle, and I was just I couldn't talk. I just blacked out. Like, I completely blacked out. I could kind of hear him calling Belle, and trying to like reinvigorate me back into my body. And in that moment, my father, who is in spirit now, who's passed, came into that blackout as well. So water seems to trigger a lot of emotional responses in me. And myself and my boyfriend were just talking about how even by being in the bath, it's a healing session, and it can bring up emotional stuff because you're going into the body of water, and water represents emotion. You're also going back into the womb, right? When you're in water, you're having that biological memory of being in your mother's womb, in her waters. So back to Atlantis. Late 20s, Saturn return. Your Saturn return is something that happens every so many years. I think it's every 12 years? Something like that. Marty, you can correct me in the comments of the Saturn return, because as far as I know, it happens throughout your life. I'm not an astrologer, although I do dabble. But your late 20s Saturn return is particularly potent. For those of you who are 28, 29, buckle up, baby, because it's a deep time of transformation, life review, shadow work, facing your fears, and really deciding who you are now and who you want to become. It's very powerful. And I'd have these recurring, went on for months at one point. I think I was about 28 at that time. And it was just the same. It was just living on this beautiful earth, wearing beautiful robes. Like, I just remember the clothes were amazing. Purple velvet robes, and I have vivid memories of being a crystal healer and working with people on their bodies with these massive crystal laser, like these like cone shaped lasers of like rose quartz crystal and amethyst and smoky quartz and all different kinds of crystals. And you'd pull the cone, like it was like, so it was the point of the cone was where the energy would reach such a powerful climax, and it would blast into the person's body you were working on, and it would clear and shift cancers and diseases and illnesses and blocks. And I remember working in these beautiful chambers and castles and buildings, and they'd have like openings, big openings at the top, so that the laser would access solar energy and would blast through and would heal people. Now, when I first started really getting into working with people as a healer, I used to use a lot of crystals, and I would place them on the meridian points on the body, and I would make crystal grids, and I was really big into crystals. I mean, I am a crystal soul, so it's natural that I would resonate with those energies. As I evolved, years and years of working with loads and loads of different people, eventually I realized that the crystals are beautiful and powerful. And by the way, if you use crystals, keep using them. Like, do what makes you feel connected to your work. I just felt like I don't need the crystals. Like, I love crystals, I still do. I love wearing crystals. I have crystals around my home. I still might put a crystal under my pillow or take a bath. That's a great tip. Put a big chunk of natural crystal in your bath. It will go into the water, because water is a conduit, and the crystal carries energy and frequency. So you can have a free healing session by having crystals. I love crystals. But my work quickly became so powerful, I just didn't need the crystals. I didn't need props anymore. And I think that's important as you evolve as someone who works with energy. It's just good to trust your natural evolution, your natural growth, and allow yourself to use or not use what you feel comfortable with, okay? So that's another, like for instance, I have my shamanic rattle here, which is handmade by shamans in Peru. These are eagle feathers, this is tiger fur, and by the way, no tigers were killed. I'm an pro-animal freedom activist. I love animals, have all my life. My spirit animal is this. These are from natural deaths and everything. It's all kosher, believe me. This was actually a gift from a beautiful client of mine who died of brain cancer. He had a tumour, Andrew, who I loved him dearly, and he let me pick a gift, and just feeling that. I can feel Andrew. So my spirit animal is feline, like a lioness, and I call her Saoirse, and I often feel her in my meditations, or she's there when I do a healing work on someone, a session. And Saoirse is Irish for freedom. So some of you know Saoirse Ronan. It's a beautiful name, it's Irish for freedom. I love Saoirse Ronan. But my point is, I love using the rattle. I think it's very powerful. But I also know it's a prop. And I know that the power is what's coming through you. And even as a healer, your body is the prop. Your hands are props, your eyes are props. All of these things are channels. We are conduits, we are catalysts to mirror to other people their own healing. But back to Atlantis. I just kept having these vivid dreams, and not just at nighttime. The nighttime dreams were more flashes of the end of Atlantis, which were very stressful, and these big bodies of water and tsunamis washing over this beautiful life with incredible technology, crystalline technology that could shift and heal anything. But also I do remember I'd have daydreams, and I'd have, as a child, and I also would have visions of humanity becoming arrogant, humanity at that time, although being quite advanced, especially technologically, there eventually became an imbalance with a hubris, you know, a neglect of humility, a neglect of groundedness, which when I tap in and tune into that lifetime or lifetimes in Atlantis, there was a long span of time where things were beautiful and humanity was at its best in many, many ways. And I think that's why a lot of us really relate and connect to that timeline, because it was probably one of the most profound, powerful, inspiring expressions of Earth and Gaia and humanity. But unfortunately, we lost the run of ourselves, and we forgot that there needs to be a balance to all things. There are timelines where the divine feminine was all powerful, and actually that got out of balance, and it became too cocky in its hubris, and the divine masculine began to feel almost enslaved in some way. So then we have this timeline where it went the other direction, and the divine masculine, I shouldn't even say the divine masculine, because it's not the divine reflection or expression of that. It's the patriarchal, the matriarchal, really, okay? So we'll say patriarchal expression of the masculine became, in this timeline, that got out of balance, where women felt like slaves and felt like they couldn't be free and that they weren't respected. And that is an old memory in the cellular memory of many souls, and indeed the earth carries memory of its past in its ley lines, in its portals, in its fabric, right? So that's why there's been such a hold on the feminine, on the matriarchal energy, because it's like the masculine saying, well, we're not going to let you guys take control again because that got out of hand before. So we've both yin yang has been out of balance and caused trouble and added to the pain body of Gaia and of humanity and of human beings. It's not about right or wrong. It's not about who's on top. And I think now with this toxic femininity, which is swinging, in my opinion, beyond what's healthy, this is where we see this pendulum swinging. And human beings, we have a tendency to swing back and forward, where if we could just settle down and slow down and still everything and bring it into a center point, we'd actually be much happier. Because the truth is, we need both. We need our masculine and feminine energy, and we need both in balance. Like night and day. If we didn't sleep and we didn't have night, we'd soon suffer, and vice versa. If we only had night and didn't have the light of day, we'd be in trouble. So you'd think by now we'd have figured that out. But anyway, we're learning. So I'd have these dreams, and I just felt swallowed up when I'd wake up with the water and with the emotion of it. And I remember one particular dream. I was living in Carrick and Shannon at the time in County Leitrim. And this tsunami dream, like, I remembered fully drowning in it and fully dying. And going back to source and spirit saying to me, the wise elders taking my soul into the room they take you in when you're doing the life review, and then saying, what did you learn? And I said, we forgot that we are children of God. We forgot that we are sparks from the divine, and that we get to embody that and we get to play with that. But we almost relived the Garden of Eden and did the pull away further again, separation, back into thinking that you are the God, and losing your sense of connection to the Almighty Prime Creator of all that is. With the current technological you can call it advancements if you like, I'm thinking of doing a video called How My Smartphone Ruined My Life. And I know it's ironic because I'm on a smartphone right now recording this video, talking to you. But that's about as far as it goes with me. I really feel that our reliance on obsessive advancing, and again I use that word in inverted commas, of technology, this constant pursuit of pulling away, in many ways it's quite a mirror, a reflection of what I learned and what I was shown from the Atlantean timelines. Pulling away from your true nature. That's what I was shown, that's what I learned. I remember saying this. We lost our way, we went too far into techno engineering, shall we say. We got too cocky and we started to play demigods. And I think when that happens, we're in trouble. I'm not saying we're doing that now, but there are timelines that I'm shown, like that's part of my psychic gift. I'm shown different timelines for people, for places, for situations, for humanity, for groups, for individuals. And there is definite timeline there where AI and that techno pursuit, that chase after that, can become a problem. But it only becomes a problem if, again, back to the Garden of Eden, we decide, you know what, I don't need you. It's basically the soul going, I'm going to pull away and I'm going to explore over here from my main source, from my co-creator. When you take the co out of creator, when you distance yourself from the source, from the fuel, that's when we get into trouble as individuals and as a collective. Take the dictators of the world. They see themselves as gods. They're in that destructive mindset where they think that whatever their ego demands must be played out before them. And because they have that arrogance and that complete overinflated ego confidence, they actually use that power in a very dark, negative way. So what did I learn from being in Atlantis? Well, we can't be our best selves and be our authentic selves if we pull away and divorce ourselves from the source, from God, from the one prime creator of all that is. We can pinch ourselves off and we can come back, and I think part of being on this life journey is sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself, right? But that's not intentional. And I feel like in Atlantis there was intentional demigodery and technological engineering where we started to think that we were the creator. And we started to mess with that. And we started to mess with DNA and cloning and all that batshit crazy stuff. And it just did us no good. And like I said, I also have beautiful memories of Atlantis. I've met people in this lifetime. When I shook their hand, I was shown flashes of me knowing them in Atlantis. I remember I worked with a lovely lady in the west of Ireland called Nullig, and when I met her, she immediately recognized me from Atlantis, and I did her as well. She was a master healer, and she worked with budding young healers. I was quite young at the time. And we both said, I remember you from Atlantis. You know, it was very interesting. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is be very cognizant of feeling that connection to source, because it's like doing the hoovering, you know, or the vacuum cleaning, as you'd say in America. If you don't plug that in, you can like go over the carpet 10 million times. It's not going to work. And I think as humans, sometimes we just go through the motions of things and we forget to have the humility to say that prayer and say, Prime Source, Creator of all that is, Mother, Father, God, whatever you want to call that home, that source energy. I can't do this without you. I need to plug into you. And I always I've literally, when I was 16, I did this big ceremony and I devoted my life in service to humanity as a healer, as a teacher, as a light worker. I said, God, Source, my life is in your hands. And I say that regularly because I know that as a child of God, that's part of why I'm here. But I also know it's important that we have that respect and love and the remembrance that without that higher power, we're nothing. I think a lot of people have distanced themselves from that. And in my work with people in addiction, in drug and alcohol addiction, all kinds of addictions, that's a cornerstone of the work we do. It's so important to remember. And it doesn't matter, you get to choose what that higher power is. It might just be a symbol of love for you, and that's more than enough, right? That's God. It might be a particular religious thing. I don't know, everybody's different. It might just be a higher consciousness, but there's so much power in connecting to that higher power. And the arrogance, the scientific experiments of Atlantis got out of hand to a pretty ugly degree, where creation had to, it's like Kali, the goddess of death and destruction and rebirth, had to step in and say, you know what, this needs to go. This is just bad news. It's when you're experimenting with science and energy in that way, like, we forget how powerful we are, my friend. We are so powerful because when we're plugged into that source, that energy is funneling through us. It's like my video, Careful What You Wish For. You just might get it because that's how powerful we are. There's things that I never thought I could have or experience or manifest, and I didn't even, just by enjoying the fantasy of having that thing or that experience, it happened, it manifested. And that's why there's truth in that saying, careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Because we are powerful co-creators. But don't forget about the co-creation in creating. Don't forget about the higher power. And there will be times your ego and soul will be in conflict. And I think that's what happened in Atlantis. There was a conflict between the ego becoming a demigod and the soul wanting to respect and use these technologies to use this power in a truly loving and high vibrational way. And I believe that the world in this incarnation, in this timeline, we're doing it We're doing it from a place of heart-centeredness now. We're doing it from a place of love. I feel like we've been given this chance to heal the trauma from Atlantis. So many of you are actually healing Atlantean trauma that you carry in your body, myself included. Although I do feel I've healed a lot of that, thank God. And we're being given this chance now to redo it in some ways, but to do it very differently. So that's what I have for you on Atlantis. I could talk about Atlantis all day. It was definitely, it played a much bigger role in my memory and in my energy in my late 20s, early 30s. I feel like I've explored it as much as I need to. I do feel now we're being asked to heal and drop the Atlantean baggage and create space so that we have this new creative timeline really flesh out. So, if you enjoyed my little chat about Atlantis and my own personal experiences with it, you can like this video, you can subscribe, that would be great, and I'll see you soon.